Let's go. My man Aaron Meyer, what's up, man? Let's go. We'll get into it 1 second. I'm just posting the links out on social media. That was big time, man. I love what we're gonna get into in a second. Man, that was exciting. I'm starting to lose my voice over here. We'll give it like one more minute. I'll get into it, guys. Just want to get these posts out on social media. Great coverage, Landon. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. I'm gonna try to live tweet as much as possible. Home games will be a little bit more difficult. I'll be up in the press box probably for most of those. But away games, I'm gonna be really live on Twitter. It was fun. Got that Trey touchdown right in front of me. Oh, you were in the game. I love it, Aaron. And you're at the game and you're committed in here in the live. I love it. Yeah, that was exciting. The one thing I loved about that Trey Wallace touchdown right before half was I feel like prior offenses, think Mike Yursich, we would have like ran the ball once, set up a field goal, tried to just take that. Andy Kotonicki said, "Hey, we have a one-on-one Hollis versus Trey Wallace. I saw our wide receiver one. Let's give him a shot." And you saw what happened. I felt like that was kind of the theme today for Drew Aller and Andy Kotonicki. Hey, let's take a shot. Let's take advantage of a defense that's lacking, especially in that pass defense. And Drew Aller didn't really, have to. All right, I appreciate it. He didn't have to do a whole lot after the second half. We came out. Nick Singleton did a great job. Had it bursted off a couple long runs. Had a long of 40 on his longest rush today. I think that was huge. Getting Nick Singleton back involved in the offense in an explosive manner. It gets me really excited, kind of what I saw there. Bo Prabula getting very involved early on in the offense. That was exciting. Almost lost that fumble there, had us a little worried, but overall, I really like that. But let's just talk some of the stats here, man. First off, on offense, Trey Wallace, 5 receptions, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a reception for 50 yards, that long touchdown from Drew Aller. And just talking about that, West Virginia came out in a basic cover 3, and this was after. And hold on, let's just back up for a second. Andy Kotonicki completely changed this offense. What happened was first we saw Vega Ioane, who is 350 pounds, in the slot wide receiver position, motioned him down, cracked down on the defensive end. Next play, quad wide receiver at the top of the screen, motion Nick Singleton out of that quad all the way to the other side of the field, opens Drew Aller up for a really, really easy, nice slant completion. And that play was open because Andy Kotonicki made it open. So I think we're already starting to see Drew Aller have it just his offensive coordinator is making it easier for him. We didn't see that with Mike Yursich. He's making it more manageable. And then a play or two later, that cover 3 defense, Trey Wallace runs a nice skinny post, and Drew Aller put it on the money for him. Now, the only thing I want to talk about that, where I said that everybody remembers that quad formation where Nick Singleton motioned down, and I believe it was Trey Wallace. He hit for an easy completion it was like 7 or 8 yards. But that was so significant to me because Andy Kotonicki saw Drew Aller kind of struggled early. He missed on a couple balls. He almost threw a pick 6. There was a deep dig, which is a deep in route early, I think first or second drive. Drew Aller just completely missed it. Andy Kotonicki said, "Hey, my guy is struggling a little bit. Let's get him an easy completion." Now, after that quad that I talked about, the quad wide receivers, motion Nick Singleton, easy completion. After that, Drew Aller got going. So that is a huge credit to Andy Kotonicki for saying, "Hey, let's give him a play that we know is going to get open. Let's get Drew Aller into a rhythm for this offense." So like that's the type of thing that I like to see. That's a veteran offensive coordinator to be able to recognize that and help out his quarterback, get him settled in. And then we saw what Drew Aller did the rest of the day. He was dealing some dimes on West Virginia. Yeah, Drew talking shit. Yeah, that got everybody hype. I think that got like the entire team hype. And I was just on the radio. I wasn't able to go live, so I'm sorry. That's why this was late. We're gonna get it synced up next time. So I wanted to come on live afterwards. But that's what I was in the locker room with Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford was an emotional leader. He would truck someone and curse on the field, and it was just exciting to watch. It got you pumped up as someone that was one of his teammates and one of his protectors. Now, I haven't really seen that from Drew Aller up to this point for the most part. I don't think he's really shown enough emotion. Now, talking from he had a great day on the field. But I think this is almost a bigger day for Drew Aller from a leadership standpoint. He really took that next step where guys looked to him and were like, okay, like I'm going to follow this dude. He's got me hyped up, ready to go. And so, you saw that confidence start to be instilled in Drew Aller throughout the game. And that goes straight to Andy Kotelnicki. I don't really think there's, and then also Trey Wallace. I talked about not only Drew Aller needing to be helped out by his offensive coordinator, but by his wide receivers too. Trey Wallace did that. He has this was Trey Wallace coming out party. Last year, he had 7 receptions, 72 yards. This year, he had, sorry, I'm just pulling these up. 5 receptions, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. So starting to really prove himself as a wide receiver one there early on in this game. Now, kind of started out a little shaky, and that was to be expected. I will say that. But what a response by the defense. I mean, West Virginia got the ball on our own 25, and now granted, they kind of West Virginia messed up in their own right. But I do want to talk about Abdul Carter. Now, I think Garrett Green would have recovered that first fumble snap that we ended up getting, but Abdul Carter went in and just fully trucked him on the ground, and Garrett Green knocked the ball loose. We were able to get that ball back, and the momentum kind of stacked from there. And then there was a later point where Garrett Green fumbled the ball and didn't really want to go for it. I think he was a little nervous because Abdul Carter kind of shellacked him on that first fumble recovery. So that's kind of making people a little hesitant. Now, let's stick with the offense for a little bit longer. We'll switch over to the defense in a second. Nick Singleton, 13 carries, 114 yards, averaged 8.8 yards per carry. I know majority of that is kind of inflated from those 2 big runs, but hey, you can't put those aside. I mean, those were explosive plays from Nick Singleton, and we've been asking for those for a long time from him. We didn't see. I don't think he had a single rush over 40 yards last year. Almost at I'm not exactly sure what his second rush was, but I think one was 40 yards and one was damn close to 40 yards. If we can have that Nick Singleton back, I'm excited about this offense. And honestly, that last big run by Nick Singleton, it reminded me of that Rose Bowl run from Nick Singleton back in 2023. The defensive line slanted away. The offensive line did a great job picking up the pressure, the slants. Nick Singleton saw the hole, cut it, and he was out of there. So I really like what I saw from Nick Singleton today. Now, if there was one critique, I would say the running game as a whole, we rushed for 220, very successful. I love that from the offense. But at the same time, there was a lack of establishing the run, where what I mean by that is, hey, we're able to get 5, 6, 7 yards of pop. We didn't really get that from the run game today. So there's a little bit of worry there, especially you want that run game to be something where Drew Aller can depend on it when you go to Ohio, or when Ohio State comes to town, when you go to USC, when you go to Wisconsin in some of those tougher games. But overall, seeing Nick Singleton be explosive again, that was one of my favorite things of the day. There was a lot to kind of talk about here, but it was a fun offense to watch. And look, someone asked me in the live when I did earlier this week, I did a live, and they said, how would you measure success for Andy Kotelnicki in this game? And I said, obviously, number one, win the game. That's clear. But the offense to look different. And I think to any of you guys, the offense looked different. When you just watched it, it was like, wow, that's different. That is new. That excites me. And the players feel that too. Like when you are a offensive, really defense too, but when you're an offensive player and you are playing inspired and you're excited to run this next play, and your coach is getting you hyped up, it's a different world that you live in when you're running those plays. And you just kind of felt that excitement from the Penn State offense. And even in those wins last year, I felt like we'd walk away sometimes. Now, not West Virginia, but we'd walk away sometimes and it was like, yeah, we won, but it was kind of lackluster. I'm not excited about that offense. I'm pretty excited after today. Now, I will say this is kind of how the offense looked last year. Drew Aller had that coming out party. So definitely be mindful. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. We haven't, won the national championship yet. This was a West Virginia defense that I said it all week. As much as the West Virginia fans wanted to kind of insult me and say that I was wrong, it's a bad West Virginia defense. So I will say that. Nitwit, I agree. We do need more push from our offensive line. That is, like I said, something that we saw. And I was going to talk about some of the substitutions. JB Nelson came in for Vanga Ioane, like second or third series. I'm going to be honest. I didn't see exactly what happened. It looked like JB kind of like MA'd, which missed assignment. That means he kind of went the wrong way. And then we didn't see him the rest of the game. So I will tell you, I think we'll see Vanga probably secure that left guard spot. And then we saw Cooper before we put in that second string team at the end. We saw Cooper Cousins like once or twice on a couple drives, and he pancaked someone at the end. Now, I don't think that's someone that's ready to take over the offense. He's playing a lot of guard. I don't think he's going to take the center position from Nick Dawkins, who, like I said, I know that snap happened earlier. That wasn't really Doc's fault. But this offensive line is going to have to watch this film honestly. They had a great day. Now let's talk about pass pro, though. 0 sacks. I love that from this Penn State offensive line. Drew Aller not under pressure. And I do think the West Virginia didn't really have a good pass rush. I will say that. Their pass rush was lacking significantly. I said that pregame. I didn't really think they had any premier pass rushers. But overall, a really solid job of Drew Aller. And then not only, they did a good job blocking, but when Drew Aller had to hold the ball for 3, 4, 5 seconds, he did a good job creating space with his legs. He'd create room. There was one play, and this is what I'm kind of talking about. I feel like Drew Aller in the past didn't want to take that much risk. He had only 2 interceptions last year, and I kind of joked around and said, hey, I'd like to see him have a couple more interceptions. Do I actually want to see him turn over the ball more? No. But what I meant by that was I feel like he can take some more risk and allow his guys to win the ball, those 50-50 balls for him. We saw that with Trey Wallace at the end of the second quarter with that touchdown. Now, there was another time Drew Aller rolled out, wasn't really able to throw from a stable platform, but just gave Trey Wallace a chance and defensive PI, boom, there you go, 15 yards. Like, that's the type of thing I like to see from Drew Aller, where there's that growth of, hey, I got Trey Wallace, that's my number one guy one-on-one, give him a shot, throw it up. So I definitely like to see that. What did you see from Katron that would explain his lack of efficiency? I honestly think the offensive line blocking was struggling a little bit. Nick Singleton, that touchdown run, that 40-yard touchdown run, we ran a counter play where we pulled the backside tackle, and it just worked out really well. Nick Singleton, one thing that he has struggled with is reading blocks and seeing the hole. He saw it mighty well today. Now, Katron Allen had like 10 rushes for 20 yards. Definitely not what you want to see from him. But it's going to take some time for this offensive line to gel. And I'm going to be honest, I'd rather them struggle a little bit in the run game and still break off some big runs and be locked down in the pass game than, say Drew Aller's under duress all day. I think that would have completely changed how the game looked. So then giving Drew Aller time to pass is huge, especially with Drew Shelton, Anthony Donka out there at both tackle spots. Drew Shelton's had a little bit of experience. Anthony Donka got to play in the Peach Bowl for Caden Wallace for about 3 quarters and looked really solid. But overall, a really good showing from a fairly young offensive line there. Yeah, all the Mountaineer smack hype and all week. Glad that shut the fan base up. Yeah, you and me both, man. I think we were all excited to kind of give West Virginia a beat down, and their offense was kind of non-existent, and we can start to talk about that for a little bit. One thing I will say is Zane Durant. I think we could be seeing the last of Zane Durant in a Penn State uniform this year. He had a sack, and then he had 1.5 tackles for loss. He excites me. He was kind of wreaking havoc the entire game, and I think he was one of the main reasons that West Virginia really struggled to run the ball. So now let's talk about this Penn State defense. One of my keys to victory was do not let Garrett Green use his legs to beat you. Garrett Green had 10 carries for 5 yards. That is a success. Abdul Carter, Tony Rojas, they all kept him in check. And we'll go down the list because I posted some keys to victory before the game. And not to pat myself on the back, but my number 1, do not let Garrett Green beat you with his legs. Number 2, run the ball. Number 3, win the turnover battle. Number 1, Garrett Green had 10 rushes for 5 yards. Number 2, Penn State rushed for 222 on the ground. Absolutely killed them. That's what we wanted to see. And then number 3, Penn State won the turnover battle 1-3. They only had 1 turnover. West Virginia had 3 turnovers. So they nailed basically what I thought would give them a successful game. And they did that. So, and then on top of that, we saw extra things. We saw defensive line depth. Smith Vilbert with the strip sack. I think this is one of the deepest defensive line rooms we've had in a long time. Obviously, a couple losses with Jameel Lyons being dismissed, but it seems like we'll have guys just lined up behind our starting defensive line that is going to be able to kind of pick up that slack. So that is a veteran group that has 2 6 years at defensive tackle. And then Amin Vanover played a lot of snaps at defensive end whenever Abdul or Denai took a break. And I thought he had a pretty decent day. Now, the safeties. Whew. Jalen Reed and KJ Winston. Zakee Wheatley came up and made a couple good tackles, but Jalen Reed and KJ Winston, I'm saying it right now, that is easily the best safety duo in all of the land. I am really excited about them. Both of them are guys that will come down to the line of scrimmage, make those dirty tackles that you love to see from your safeties, where it's not necessarily always making some game-breaking play, which Jalen Reed did with that fumble, but they were just all around the line of scrimmage wreaking havoc and not allowing West Virginia to really get going as an offense. So I think there needs to be a shout out to this defense where, normally we are used to seeing a lot more sacks out of them, but they had 2 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. And that was enough to, like I said, this West Virginia rushing attack averaged about 230 on the ground. They averaged 85. They had 85 yards today. 230 on the ground per game last year, 85 yards in this game. That is stopping a run game. They also averaged 2.3 yards per carry. That's really good. I think, as much Jaheim White got hurt for a while there, he came back in at the end. But keeping him contained was huge. He averaged 7.7 yards per carry last year. That is an insane number. So to keep him right at 4.1 yards per carry, that's what you like to see if you're Tom Allen. And if I'm Tom Allen, it was a good day. You saw young Elliott Washington kind of flash a cornerback there. He got an opportunity. That is someone I will tell you guys. He runs a 4.3. He bench presses 4.05. That is a cornerback to keep an eye on. When James Franklin said, I believe I have 5-6 cornerbacks that I think can start for this team, I think Elliott Washington was a kind of a part of that group. So yeah, you guys, please leave any reactions, questions below that you had from the game. But just kind of circling back, one thing I did like, Penn State was changing up the snap count a lot. And I'll tell you guys, in my time playing, there was not a lot of that, meaning that they were going on 2, they were going on 3. And when you're constantly going on 1, it's hard for an offense to, tee off on a defensive line. The defensive line knows it's on 1. They're able to really start to get a beat on how you're moving off the line. You start to go on 2, on 3. It makes it a little bit more difficult for that defense to really get off and tee off on you. Bo Prabula, I think we are going to see a ton of him in goal line situations and third downs. And it feels like, hey, we get to 3rd and 2. Bo Prabula is going to come in and he's going to run a read option, probably with a pitch key. So, he can either hand it off, pull it, and then he has someone else to pitch it to if he wants to. So there is a lot of things that Andy Kotelnicki can do with Bo Prabula, and I think we probably just scratched the surface of Andy Kotelnicki's creativity today. I loved what I saw from him. And I talked about this at the beginning, but just, didn't see a ton at the beginning. But then Wenger Ioane in the slot motioned him down, crack block with your 350-pound guard, quad motion at the top of the screen, motion Nick Singleton down, create an easy completion for Drew Aller. Then Drew Aller, struggling with confidence a little bit. Andy Kotelnicki gave him an easy completion. Next thing you know, Drew Aller's confident, puts it on the money to Trey Wallace in between the linebacker and safety for that first really, really big touchdown. So that's what I like to see from Kotelnicki, helping out his young quarterback. One thing I did notice, that wildcat that we ran where we had a false start, Drew Aller was simulating the snap count from like almost the slot wide receiver, like wing tight end position, and the offense had a false start. I don't really know if I like that. I think that's something to keep an eye on, and I think that's something they'll talk about. There's a big time corrections period tomorrow. We'll have film for about 2 hours. Then you have a walkthrough, and in that walkthrough, one of the biggest, longest periods is correction period, where you have to basically walk through your mistake and correct it. There's going to be a lot of that in tomorrow in that Lash football building, but there's also a lot of faces that are smiling on the way back from Morgantown right now just kind of what we put out as a offensive unit. And then we continued and kind of were just um, on par with where we left off on defense, creating havoc, creating turnovers, and being the defense that when we needed to rely on them, they delivered. Talk about a fourth down stop. Should have had two fourth down stops. The refs were absolutely blind. It felt like the refs were trying to cook up against Penn State a little bit there, where that touchdown they scored at the end absolutely was not a touchdown, and then that fourth down wasn't even close. But the refs also gave us a couple calls, so I wasn't too mad at it. One of my favorite things that I saw was Drew Aller taking what the defense gave him. And normally that means, dumping it off underneath. But in this sense here, that it was that. But also when he had a one-on-one with his top guy, with Trey Wallace, he said, "Hey, I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to give him an opportunity to go do that." And I feel like that's where Drew Aller has taken the next step a little bit of, "Hey, I'm not nervous to throw a pick. If I throw it up and something happens and West Virginia DB just so happens to make a play and pick me off, hey, so be it. I'm going to give my guy an opportunity." We saw a couple touchdowns off of jump balls. We saw defensive pass interferences. We saw really big gains. Think of Maury Evans, even though may have pushed off a little bit, but that was following that Fox fourth down conversion that the refs gave them that I didn't really think they converted on. So saying all that to say, I really just like how Drew Aller is taking what the defense gave him, that Kaytron Allen touchdown run. Now, if you're with your family and young kids, cover your ears when Kaytron Allen scores a touchdown. He used a couple interesting words, but I like to see that emotion from him. But talking about that play, West Virginia runs a classic Big 12 defense. They like to be really soft. They dropped 8 guys. They brought a linebacker late and then ended up rushing 4. But Drew Aller identified, hey, this is a really weak defense. They dropped all the way back. We're only on the 20, 25-yard line. They're giving me a ton of space. Kaytron Allen right out of the backfield, dump it off, allow your guy to make a play. And Kaytron Allen did that, just that. Broke a couple tackles, got in the end zone. And then you heard Kaytron Allen cursing in your home living room, which I kind of enjoyed. I always like to hear. I think Jalen Kimber kind of got off a couple explicitives as well into our TVs. So not sure what's going on with Fox over there. I don't know if they have to put the TV delay on a little bit longer, but normally the games are on a 5-6 second delay for that reason, so they can censor it. But we got to hear some curse words from our Penn State student athletes, and I kind of enjoyed hearing just that emotion come out of especially the offense. We've seen it from the defense. Seeing that from the offense was really neat. I enjoyed that. And then, that Trey Wallace touchdown before the half was on Hollis. So, he can shut his mouth. That boy Hollis was the one pregame saying Penn State only respects Michigan and Ohio State, and rightfully so, considering what we just did to your defense. So there probably shouldn't be a lot of respect there. Cooper Cousins got to play a decent amount. Especially late in the game. I really have never seen a freshman offensive lineman get to play week 1. I'll tell you, my freshman year, week 1, was Wisconsin in 2021. I didn't even come close to sniffing the field. A little bit of a different offense where a lot of veterans were graduated as far as the offensive line. But seeing Cooper Cousins that early means that these coaches have some true trust in him. That is going to be the kind of the centerpiece of this offensive line for years to come. So really excited about that. Abdul Carter was so close to his first sack coming from a true defensive end position today. There was multiple times he got mighty close, never got to really finish it off, and didn't get that sack that he wanted. But overall, I was really pleased and excited with Abdul Carter's performance. And I thought he was pretty stout in the run game as well. But look, guys, if anybody has any questions you want me to answer before I get out of here, drop them below. But we will tomorrow morning. I'm going tomorrow morning. I am going to record a pregame show or a postgame show, against West Virginia, where we kind of dive into this a little bit more. And I will put that out tomorrow night for you guys. So check that out. If you're bored at all tonight, you can watch Drew Aller play some golf on my YouTube channel. I had Drew Aller, Tyler Warren, Dom DeLuca. We played 9 holes at Center Hills. That was back in July. I just put it out. So if you want to see our quarterback that just dropped his nuts all over the West Virginia defense, you can go watch him play some golf. He has a pretty good swing. But for the most part, man, it's a good day to be a Nittany Lion. I'm not saying we are at all crown champions or anything like that. This is kind of where we were last year, but this was exciting to see as a Penn State fan. I think mainly from that offense, the explosiveness, the creativity from Andy Kotonicki, Drew Aller. Like I said, flat out, I don't know other way to say it. He dropped his nuts today, and that is what we've been waiting to see as Penn State fans. It felt like he was being a little too timid, a little too afraid to make a mistake. Not today from Drew Aller. Defense kind of continuing more of the same. Penn State takes down West Virginia 34-12. Drew Aller slinging it with 3 touchdowns. Trey Wallace, 2 touchdowns through the air. And like I said, guys, this is an exciting day to be a Nittany Lions fan. Be on the lookout for my post-game show. Like I said, I'll probably post it later tomorrow night around 5 or 6 p.m. So tune in after those NFL games, and we will continue to move on. We'll have a good week. We will do, and also I am changing. If you watch 4 downs, where I look at a player, we are changing 4 downs. It's still going to be 4 downs, but we're looking at the 4 most important plays from a game. So I'm going to break down the game for you guys. Where we look at those plays that were really impactful. What actually happened on those plays to give you guys a little bit more of in-depth view of what really happened, and then you can take that to the tailgates the next week against Bowling Green, and I'll dissect it for you guys. You can take all the credit, say that you knew exactly what happened, that Drew Aller did XYZ and fit it in between the cover 3 safety and linebacker. We're going to get all the lingo right. So if you enjoy 4 downs looking at one of our star players, it's going to be a little bit different looking at the biggest plays from the game, but it's something I look forward to. So like I said, be on the lookout for all that stuff. Official post-game episode coming out tomorrow night. Love you guys. Appreciate it. We are 1-0.